When you hear the name Vincent Price, you probably think of that voice, right? The master of menace, the king of classic horror films. But behind that spooky public image, he had this totally different obsession, one that had absolutely nothing to do with monsters and everything to do with masterpieces. This is the story of Vincent Price's other, priceless passion.
So how on earth does the guy famous for scaring people become a champion for fine art? It is such a strange and fascinating story. And to really get it, we're going to do things a little differently. We have to start near the end of the story and work our way backward. All right, let's dive right in. The year is 1962. Vincent Price is a massive star. He's at the absolute peak of his fame. And he decides to take on a role that just baffled everybody, both in Hollywood and in the art world. He became an art salesman for Sears. Yup, that's Sears, the same place your parents went for power tools and washing machines. In '62, they launched something called the Vincent Price Collection of Fine Art. And the whole idea was just revolutionary. You could literally walk into a department store to buy a lawnmower and walk out with an original masterpiece. This was a full-on assault on the stuffy, exclusive art world. And just look at the kind of work we're talking about here. This wasn't just some cheap, decorative stuff. Price was selling original pieces from some of the biggest names in art history. An actual Picasso for $800, a certified Rembrandt for $900. He even went and personally commissioned a brand new piece from Salvador Dali just for Sears. This was the real deal, and it was available to literally anyone who walked in the door. And get this, for $35. $35, you could own an original print by Francisco Goya, one of the great Spanish masters. I mean, just think about that for a second. At Sears, a Goya cost less than a new vacuum cleaner. It was completely, totally unheard of. You know, Price wasn't just some celebrity face they slapped on this project. Oh no, he was the architect of the entire thing. Sears basically gave him a blank check. He personally traveled the world curating the collection. He even made training films for the sales staff to teach them about art history. And, maybe most importantly, he insisted on payment plans so regular families could afford a real piece of history for $5 down and $5 a month. And here's the crazy part. It worked. The program was a massive, massive success. By the time it wrapped up in 1971, Sears had sold over 50,000 original pieces of art to everyday American families. Vincent Price had completely changed the game for who could own art in America. Which, of course, brings us back to that big question. Why? Why would a huge movie star pour so much of his time and energy into this? Well, to find that answer, we need to rewind the clock a little further, to the decade before all this. Okay, let's jump back to the 1950s, because you see, before he was selling art to the masses at Sears, Vincent Price was giving it away. His mission really started to take shape, not in some high-end gallery, but at a community college in East Los Angeles. It all came down to this one simple belief, a phrase he said all the time: art belongs to everyone. That was it. That was the philosophy that fueled absolutely everything he did. For Price, art wasn't some luxury for the rich. It was a basic human need, something we all deserve. And he didn't just talk about it, he put that belief into action. In 1957, he and his wife Mary did something truly historic. They donated 90 pieces from their own private art collection to East Los Angeles College. And in doing so, they created the very first teaching art collection at any community college in the United States. His goal was simple. He wanted students to learn from real art, to be able to get up close and see the actual brushstrokes, not just stare at blurry pictures in a textbook. And just look at the stuff he gave them. We're talking ancient pottery from Mexico, thousand-year-old textiles from Peru, African masks, and works from European masters like Dürer. This was not just some token gift. It was a globally significant collection spanning centuries. And who did he give it to? Not some famous museum. He gave it to community college students. And this wasn't some one-time publicity stunt either. That first donation of 90 pieces, that was just the beginning. He kept donating for the next 36 years, ultimately giving the college around 2,000 pieces in total. This was a true, honest-to-God, lifelong commitment. So, we've seen the salesman and we've seen the philanthropist, but to find the real origin, the spark that ignited this lifelong obsession, we have to go all the way back to the very beginning, to the single purchase that started it all. So now, we're going all the way back to St. Louis in the 1920s. Vincent Price isn't a movie star. He isn't even an adult yet. He's just a kid who has fallen completely and totally in love with art. That's how old he was when he made his very first serious art purchase. 12. Can you imagine? While all the other kids were out collecting baseball cards or whatever, a 12-year-old Vincent Price had his eye on a much, much different kind of prize. And what he chose for that first piece, it's just almost unbelievable. He didn't buy a poster. He didn't buy a copy. He bought an original etching by Rembrandt. Yes, Rembrandt, one of the greatest artists who ever lived. An absolutely mind-blowing purchase for a 12-year-old kid. And this is where it all clicks into place. The price for the Rembrandt was $37.50. Now, for a kid in the 1920s, that was a fortune. He couldn't afford it. So what did he do? He negotiated a payment plan, $5 down and $5 a month for a year. Does that sound familiar? The exact same idea he would later bring to millions of Americans at Sears. It started right here, with one determined kid who just had to own a masterpiece. So, when you connect the dots from that 12-year-old boy carefully paying off his Rembrandt month by month to the man who put 50,000 works of art into regular American homes, you see the whole picture. This was never some celebrity side project. It was the culmination of a deeply personal, lifelong mission. And it kind of leaves you with a question to chew on. What does it really mean to believe that art belongs to everyone? For Vincent Price, it was his life's work.